Welcome to Flow of Miracles Reflective Moments. And today I want to speak about emotions. And I will speak about emotions in general in this reflective moment because I noticed that a lot of people take emotions for granted and they have problems with their emotional expressions, emotional awareness, or emotional regulation, which will be topics for other reflective moments. I still recommend you listen to this one because I noticed that there are a lot of different opinions about emotions. So let's talk about the first reflective question. What are emotions? And there's, of course, no consensus about what an emotion is. Some people feel that there are only big emotions like anger and fear and happiness. And other people feel like gratitude and forgiveness also count as emotions. There are people who feel that emotions are mostly a physical reaction, like anger, frustration, and emotions in that area are just adrenaline in our bodies. Some people feel that emotions are still a physical reaction, but also have a mental component. Also feel that we are thinking about some things and that will also inform our emotions. And some people feel that emotions have a spiritual base, meaning our emotions are spiritual messages that allow us to learn about ourselves and others and actually help us learn our lessons and find out where we need to grow. So it is all up to all of us to understand that we choose what we feel our emotions and what we feel our responses or reactions, and if we agree that love is an emotion or not, and that there is no consensus whatsoever. So it's a good idea to reflect on what you actually think emotions are and how that influence how you deal with them. Because if you think emotions are just a physical reaction, you are more likely to suppress your emotions because it's just a physical thing. If you believe that emotions can be spiritual messages, it means you'll spend a lot more time listening to your emotions and addressing your reactions to what you're feeling. I personally do feel that our emotions are a message to us, and it's very important to listen to ourselves and to our emotions. That doesn't mean that we should just blindly follow our emotions, that if we desire something, we should just go for it, or that if we are angry, that automatically means that we are justified. But it does mean that there's a reason why we're feeling what we're feeling. And I highly recommend people take some time to reflect on that and listen to what is happening in their emotional lives. And that brings me to the second reflective questions. Are there good and bad emotions? A lot of the time, people feel like there are good emotions like happiness and joy and sharing and caring and forgiveness. And there are bad emotions like frustration and anger and disappointment. And because they think that way, it becomes a lot easier to suppress those bad emotions, because when we feel envious or jealous, when we feel angry or frustrated, when we feel disappointed and let down, it is hard to open up communication with the other person. It is hard to do the inner work necessary to deal with these emotions. So it's much easier to say those are bad emotions. And if I feel them, I am a bad person. So it's a good idea to suppress them, to ignore them, to actually not listen to that. And sometimes people feel that when they feel those bad emotions like anger, they can just react in very angry ways and express them in a very horrible fashion because they are angry and that is their justification. I do not recommend thinking in those two terms, because that means that half our emotional lives are automatically a problem. I do think that some emotions are easier to process and easier to deal with than others. It is a lot easier to feel happy and spread happiness. than it is to do the inner work to deal with why we're feeling jealous and what we need to do to actually move past that. It's a lot easier to laugh and joke than it is to actually address that you feel angry about how you've been treated or you're frustrated on what has been happening between you and the other person. If you choose to change your thinking from good and bad towards easy to process and not as easy to process, you actually think on processing emotions and addressing them as a skill set. And it means that it's not the same for all of us. Some people are remarkably patient and they're really good at processing frustration and anger. Some people are very forgiving and they have a happier and easier time processing guilt. Some people are really great at processing jealousy or envy, and they actually build their lives in a way where these emotions help them push forward in their desires. So, what is easy to process for one person doesn't have to be easy to process for another. And actually seeing it as a skill set means that you have the access to your complete emotional life and you actually just check in where you need to do the work and where you can just enjoy having a great skill already. So I highly recommend looking at emotions in that way and reflecting on what emotions you allow yourself to feel and which emotions you do not allow yourself to feel. And last but not least, that comes directly into the last reflective question, which is, what is the value of our emotions? A lot of times people feel that they should not follow their hearts, and it's just an easier and better way to disregard the value of our emotions and just do the sensible thing. And I do a lot of healing work in allowing people to access, connect, and listen to their emotional lives, and to say that you can make decisions based on the most sensible and responsible thing. But the question is, does it make you happy? If you do not value your emotions, if you think it's very important to do the correct thing, the sensible thing, the responsible thing, it is very unlikely that you are happy. Emotions are there to be expressed, and they are there to be listened to, and they're there to be acknowledged. If you walk into the perfect house on paper, but you don't feel at home in it, it's not going to make you happy. If on paper somebody is the ideal candidate for a romantic relationship, but you feel no spark, or you don't feel comfortable with them, or you don't feel like you can trust them, that is not going to be a happy, long lasting relationship. That's going to be very difficult and very painful for both people involved. If you choose a career based on the responsible and sensible thing, but you don't have a passion for it, you don't find any joy in it, it's highly unlikely you can do it for many years without crashing into a burnout or depression or other emotional problem because it just doesn't suit you. And because of that, it's so important to reflect on if you actually understand the value of your emotions, the value of the messages they bring you, the value of the emotional growth and the lessons that are inherent in connecting with our emotional lives, and the ability to make much better decisions if you actually value your emotions. That does mean sometimes that you do need to actually make sure that you're acting within your own best interest. I do not advocate saying, I'm super in love and I'll just do everything for this person that I just met one day ago. I don't advocate giving feelings of anger that much value without first checking if you're justified and if you actually feel happy with the reaction you are going to go and do. It is easy when you're angry to just say, oh, I'll never speak to them again, and say really awful things, and then recognize that Maybe you gave your anger too much value. Maybe you didn't listen first to why things happen on the other end. So, valuing your emotions doesn't mean that they are the highest, most important, and best things in your life. I do recommend using your head, using reflection, using actually thinking before you respond to another person and not react from an emotional hurt or from an emotional pain, because that is always going to cause trouble unless the other person is remarkably good at forgiveness. But even if they are, we still feel like we did something that wasn't okay. So I hope this reflective moment has given you some ideas and insights on how you feel about your emotions and what you feel they represent and what you want to do with them. And I highly recommend you subscribe if you like this series, because there are going to be more reflective questions about emotions in the near future.